Thanks, Minister, and your officials for coming in. Food safety, animal and plant health and welfare seems to be down 21%. What's the reason?
It's a reduction in bar, which way we're at A3 there. So in last year, so the A3, the food safety, animal plant health and animal welfare, it's down 17%, and that reflects a 20 million that would have been allocated last year for under the Brexit Adjustment Reserve to fund a meat and bone meal disposal project. And obviously the Brexit Adjustment Reserve, that was spent last year, so that's not included this year and accounts for the reduction.
Okay. In the line of seafood sector, can you explain 351 down to 170, 52%?
So in terms of the overall programme total, yeah, Deputy Fitzmaurice, it's entirely related to the cessation of Brexit Adjustment Reserve funding. So of all the sectors we have...
Where did this, what I'm trying to understand is who got this money last year and who's going to be without it this year?
So the biggest part of it would have went into... Last year, for example, we would have had significant investment in piers and harbours, right, and capital investment. Also last year we would have had the payments for the decommissioning scheme. Okay. And also we would have had significant investment last year in a seafood processor capital investment scheme as well. And we had an inshore fishery scheme too. Yeah, that would have been a big part of it.
With TB, we're trying to eradicate it and we have a fair shot of it at the moment. How can we go from 71 million to 57?
So at the start of last year, I would have had about 50 million euro in the budget for the start of last year. As it went towards then the end of last year, obviously it was a very challenging year in terms of reactor numbers. When we did the supplementary estimates here, then last year I would have reallocated an extra 22 million to that. So that 71 million you're looking at is the total at the end of the supplementary estimates. Now we have 57 million plugged in at the start of this year. We don't know yet what the year will be like. We want to see an improvement, but it is something like I did last year. I'm going to have to monitor closely this year and may have to return to then if necessary at the end of the year in terms of potentially a supplementary estimate and a reallocation if necessary. Right.
How much does the Department of Agriculture get from the Department of Finance through the carbon scheme, the carbon tax?
So it's 110 million. I know was 113 million in 2024. 113 million in 2024.
Right. And I saw there where there's a cut. I saw where carbon was written down.
Yeah.
Can you explain that?
So that was for smaller measures. So overall, that cut that's a 42% cut, but it's based on a smaller overall figure of just over 6.5 million euro. The carbon tax is remaining constant there, but the change is a result of just transition funding, which was front loaded last year.
Okay, and can you tell me when is this year or last year or first year to get the carbon part, that 113 million tax across?
It would be going 2 or 3 years now.
Right.
Yeah.
So in 2015, when Acres or Gloss came out, we were able to accept 50,000 farmers. We had a budget for that. We were told that under Acres, because of everyone having to pay more carbon tax over a number of years, which it is, I think it's 623 million we take in as a government. And I heard the great Minister Ryan shouting everywhere that the more carbon tax we paid, the more was going back into farmers. How come that we can still only take 50,000 farmers into every scheme, as Deputy Flaherty pointed out, and we're getting an extra 113 million in carbon tax when all farmers were told by Minister Ryan that if they sucked up to this carbon tax, that under the Acre scheme, there'd be no problem in taking in farmers. You were saying now we can only take in 4,000 more. That'll bring it to 50,000. In 2015, we're able to take in 50,000. We're able to take in more under reps before. We have more money in the country, and you were saying now we cannot take in the 9,500 that is after applying. So can you tell me how that adds up? So 113 more million. Is it that there's less money in agriculture now? or what's the problem? When all these things have been said to suck farmers in, especially by Minister Ryan about this carbon tax.
So it's certainly programmed in out to 2030. The carbon tax.
Yeah, I know that, but I'm asking the question. We have 113 million more. We were all, in 2015, when we had no carbon tax, we took in 50,000 farmers into, I think it ended up with the ones that fell off, maybe 46 or 7,000, right? Now, we are saying that we're not fit to bring in 9,500 farmers, even though we have money for 4, and we have 112 million now got extra. And Minister Ryan said, all these farmers need to know that we'll have better environmental schemes and we'll be taking them all in. At a time that we talk about carbon and we talk about environment, and we're saying to these farmers that applied, we cannot take them in. Tell me why.
So in relation to the Acre scheme, in this cap, we've put 50% extra funding into the Acre scheme. So your payments across the general scheme, which we're expecting to average about 5,500, and then across the cooperation scheme, which we're expecting to be more in the region of 7,000 on average, and with the 50,000 to be in that over the course of that, over the course of the scheme, that's accounting for a 50%
Well,
increase.
first of all, Minister, but to clarify figures now, the average payment under GLAS was 4,200. 5,000, whatever you said, 300 or 400, is about a quarter again on top of that. So that's not the CP zones, I know that. Under GLAS, they were able to get extra money on this, the word in CP zones, we'll call it the hills or whatever. So there isn't 50% more going out when you add the figures that farmers are getting. So tell me, this 113 million, it's Minister Ryan now I really have the problem with, because he's stone mad altogether for this carbon tax. And we're taking 623 million. And a lot of that is coming from the agricultural sector. But why cannot we fit we should be, in my opinion, if 70,000 farmers apply for acres, they should be taken in. Why cannot we do that, especially at a time that we have more money in the kitty, thankfully, than ever we had as a country?
Yeah, well, we need to get more of the carbon tax to do that. But I know in relation to the Acre scheme compared to the GLAS, we've 50% extra funding there for it now. So that's getting spread across then in relation to the cooperation scheme, which is significantly higher than what had been there for people in GLAS, and also the general scheme, which is also a good tad higher than what would have been there for people in GLAS previously. So listen, there's still limits. There's not, we've got an extra 50% for a rural development programme increase from government, but obviously that still meant that we had that there is ceilings in relation to what that will do for you. It didn't mean that in relation to our suckler cow scheme we were able to accept everybody in that applied. It meant that in relation to acres last year we were able to accept everybody in. Sheep welfare scheme likewise, organic so far we've been able to accept everybody in, but it will reach a ceiling whereby we've allocated all of that 50% extra funding. The carbon tax has been split 3 ways, as you know, particularly going into acres, and then also retrofitting of homes, and then also
I know all that.
And in relation to farmers, there's the mechanism in place so that many farmers are sheltered from the carbon tax. Obviously, contractors, we know the issue there aren't, and there is the challenge there. But for farmers, there is the double mechanism, accounting mechanism, which allows carbon tax to be counted in a way and taxed in a way that can remove that carbon tax from farmers, but then the wider carbon tax is coming into the farming sector. But it's contributing to the uplift we've been able to give. Certainly, I'd like more of it to be able to bring what like to have everybody in. But that's the battle I'll continue to fight.
What I really have the problem with, we're paying carbon tax is another one, I think, you and me, and the problem is that it's gone up constantly, and we still haven't any more farmers going into schemes, when Minister Ryan stated very clearly that suck it up, guys, and all of you will be included in schemes. And if he's interested in being in the environment, he should be giving your department enough of money to make sure that those 9,500 farmers are taken in under thing. Right, I'm going to move on. SCBI minus 98%. What's the story there?
SCBI.
Yeah, SCBI.
SBCI, the Strategic Banking Corporation.
Yeah.
So we've scheduled to pay approximately 5 million to SBCI in 2024, and that's for the Growth and Sustainability Loan Scheme. It's covered by 10.5 million of savings from the Agriculture Cash Flow Support Loan Scheme, and that's accounting for that. So listen, we have a couple of really good schemes. We have the Future Growth Loan Support Scheme starting off, which we expect to have good uptake of, but it's building up. So we'll be fully funding that this year, and looking to see more people avail of it as well.
Right, the beef genomic or SCEP, my understanding is there is a fair surplus left in that. Is that correct?
In terms of the overall profile of it?
Yeah, well, like it looks like you'll struggle to get 15,000 farmers. No, I would expect, I had a meeting with the team last week, and I expect the budget to be fully accounted for. We were thankfully able to accept everybody in, but we're sort of at the budget in terms of being... There's 2,500 gone wandered away from it, isn't there?
We have, well, I think it's about 19,000 there at the moment, roughly.
No, it happened, if you look at the figures.
And a few potentially still... So
if there's a surplus left in that, will you bring out a new...
if there's any money going, I'll be looking to use it. Yeah, certainly. But
on a SCEP scheme or on another.
Yeah, well, with the 50% extra increase we got for the cap agreed at government level, we profiled the different schemes. So we have a budget there for the SCEP scheme. I met with the team last week to look at what the likely projections are around this. It would appear to be at the moment heading to be on the button in terms of at the cap. But if I can free up any more money, if there's any new entrants, I'd certainly like to avail of that. But at the moment, it's looking like it's going to be fully subscribed. In
the line of ANC, if you look at ANC, it's less money again going to the farmer's pocket. There's a drop of 1%, isn't there?
So we had 249 million at the end of last year. We're projecting that at the start of this year, but listen, everybody that applies will get it the same as before, so we may need to adjust it. I mean, 1%, it's a set payment. It's a set payment every year for the full 5 years. We'll expect to manage the budget around that, but there's no change there. Right.
There's more money coming for sheep. But I'm looking at a budget there, 21,440, and we're back to 20 this year. Can you square that circle for me, please?
Which one? You're talking about B12,
He's talking about...
Which was the sheep... I'll get it in a second for you. I was looking at the figures, 21,440 versus 20 million.
Okay, yeah, so the funding for the sheep is going to come from subheading B12. So there's 23 million euro in there this year. And
what's the one that has the million less?
That is
animal welfare sheep.
That's the sheep
scheme
welfare
for
scheme.
sheep.
That's the sheep
21,440 and 20 million minus 7%.
Yeah. So that's the sheep improvement scheme, which is the 5-year cap scheme. And it's the €12 per ewe scheme. So
there's going to be a saving there of 1.4 million.
Yeah, we expect that to fully cover. That will be all applicants will be fully covered in that at the €12 ewe, and then the €8 extra.
What's the reason? Is that there's less sheep?
It may just, well, last year was the first year of it, so I'm presuming, I mean, that would have been an estimate last year, and then we would have known what the outturn is, so we probably would have more certainty around exactly what the payment level is going to be for that this year. But everybody who applied would have been accepted again, and absolutely will be fully covered again this.
And the agri-environmental scheme, what's that 133 back to 92? What's that one, minus 31%?
That's payments that have been coming out, the transitionary payments for the old glass that would have happened last year, and there's a diminishing
REAPs
amount
might
there.
be in it as well, is it?
Yeah, so 93% of the allocation for 2023 was the payment of the 2022 scheme year balance.
And in forestry, B10, 98.932 back to 97. What's the story there?
So listen, we didn't spend it all last year, so we have a capital carryover, significant capital carryover from last year into this year. If we get to the stage where we've all that spent at the end of the year, it'll be a sign of a very successful forestry year for forestry.
So just to be clear now, last year was our worst year planting. Is this the budget we spent?
No, that was the budget that would have been allocated, I think. Yes.
For how many thousand hectares?
Because, yeah, we carried money over from that. We carried 40 million of that 98 over into this year.
So you carried 40 million over?
Or 20 million of that. So we spent 78.
Last year was sort of a disaster.
So we've carried, but that, I presume that also includes premiums and that for existing, for.
And the budget that you have there,
yeah.
What's the 97 million, how many hectares is that for?
So we've budgeted this year, I believe, for meeting our target, haven't we?
That's 8,000 hectares, is it?
Don't even know from that, what that covered, that budget, where is it?
The forestry dashboard.
But what do we budget, what does that budget cover?
This plus the 80 increase it will go to 97 plus capital carryover of 18.
Yeah, it do. So we'll have well over nearly 100.
My understanding here is, Deputy Fitzmaurice, that is to cover us meeting our target for this year.
Yeah, but is our target 8,000 hectares? That's my understanding.
Yes, that's
so
to meet.
8,000 hectares, how would you be only putting 40 million back if we only done a quarter of it?
So the figure that we have there would include the payment of premiums for people who have planted in previous years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
and also, yeah, obviously, the premium payments are much higher now as well than they would have been because we're into the new program.
yeah, I know that,
yeah.
but I understand that, but we have a lesser figure in. So how would we be planting more, given higher premiums, and still have a million saved?
Yeah. So and there's another 18 million. The capital carryover is to be added to that 97 million as well. So the capital carryover from last year is in addition to that 97 million, I'm told.
Where is that in this, sir?
Where is that in there? Pardon?
Let you back in again at the end of the one.
It's not shown on this because it's yet to be finalised, but that 18 million of a carryover will be added to that.
Okay.
Deputy Wine.